This is a Hot Pie Media original.
I don't. You know what's pretty hard to believe? All right, first of all, not long ago, it's hard to believe that we would have two outrageous, bizarre, funny, disturbing school board stories taking place within 10 miles of where I'm sitting. Taking place within a month. Remember, not long ago, he was a great guest, fun guy. It was hilarious. It was easy to take. The next one's not so easy. But remember the man that showed up and took his clothes off the school board meeting and came on the show the next day or the day after? There was that, and that was national news. It's hard to have two school board meetings make national news for being outrageous in the span of a couple of weeks, in the span of about 5 miles. But that's what we've got. I mean, this would be news if it was happening anywhere. It's hilarious that these things are No, not hilarious. This one's not so funny. Happening in our own backyard. It would be newsworthy and noteworthy and cringeworthy if it were happening anywhere. So, yeah. I'll say this because I argue this all the time. My experience with my kids, all of my kids, a bunch of kids, has been nothing short of outstanding and impressive at how most people involved in the public school industry have handled themselves. I have good experiences, but I respect anyone's right. And you have every right, and I would submit obligation, to be involved in your local school. You pay the taxes. You have every right to have skin in the game. You have a right to complain. You have a right to cheer. You have an obligation to care. You have an obligation to care. So I don't fault anybody, certainly for caring, and I don't fault anybody for getting involved. But oh my gosh, Mom. Oh my. If you are offended by the term anal sex, curl up in a ball, get your earphones on, do the thing like for the kids, because there's a pretty good chance you'll hear it no less than 45 times. Okay? Just giving you a warning up front. It's not for the timid of the weak, but it is public information. It is a public school board meeting. Oh, Mom. Mom is there to talk at the school board meeting. I believe it is in Lake Travis Independent School District. I'm not going to argue Mom has a right to be there. I'm not going to argue that Mom doesn't even have a right to complain. I'm not. You can judge however you want. When somebody serves themselves up, you have every right to judge. Mom, in this case, strolls to the podium. She says for herself, just to set this up, because I think you might get lost in some of the language. I do want to set up two important things. I believe she starts by saying something about masks. Something like, good thing you have no say over masks. So I get the hint that Mom was there to that day to do anti-mask, but something else had thrown her off. So there's that. I want you to pay close attention. And then the final part of her rant is how much she doesn't like this particular sexual act. Good luck. Have a nice day.
Carabelle and then Marge Stone.
All right, well, I'm just thankful that y'all don't have the ability to make a mask mandate. And tonight I was going to talk about the need for a second high school, but I was sidetracked by, for the boys, or the idea of or the idea of a Mexican is a Mexican is a Mexican. Take her out back, we boys figured, then hand on the put it in her coin box, put it in her cornhole, grab a hold of that braid, rub that calico. You can find that on page 39 of the book called Out of Darkness, which you can find at Hudson Bend Middle School and Bee Cave Middle School. All right, not gonna lie, I had to Google cornhole because I have the game in the back of my yard. But according to Wikipedia, cornhole is a sexualist slang vulgarism for anus. The term came into the use in the 1910s in the United States as verb form to cornhole, which came into usage in the 1930s, means to have anal sex.
There you go.
I do not want my children to learn about anal sex in middle school. I have never had anal sex. I don't want to have anal sex. I don't want my kids having anal sex. I want you to start focusing on education and not public health.
Stone, you're on.
Officials, you are supposed to be educating our children, not teach them about anal sex.
All right. Well, the mic was cut off. You had 7 more mentions of the sexual act there in the very end. What's the crowd doing, Jeff? Well, there's a person right behind her who takes out the phone, and there it goes. It's game on. I mean, we can do, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do right now? Yeah, you want to argue? I did. I looked up the book. You have every right to care about books in schools. The book is at a middle school. The book is Out of Darkness, chronicles the love affair between an African-American boy and a Mexican-American girl against the backdrop of 1937 explosion in East Texas, which is a tragic and bizarre it's of historical significance. I mean, somebody literally blew up a school in East Texas, which is worthy of reading there. But you have a complaint about a book. That's fair, legit. You guys want to do it again? Just to appreciate, Mom is really worked up. She takes the glasses off. Mom is very, did you catch the last part? I don't know what Mr. Mom, maybe you didn't need to say that last part. Maybe you didn't need to bring yourself into it. Maybe, I don't know if that helped or hurt. I don't know that I would suggest, or I'd be thrilled if my mom was, you didn't have to tell everybody you don't like it. You didn't have to tell you to have it, okay? I just don't know if that helped. I think it could throw things off. It's just me, just an observation from afar. I care. I know all my kids' books. I know all about it. Follow it closely. I get it. I'm trying to think for myself like anybody would about how I would react if my kid was reading this book. I think I would think it through. I think I would ask questions. I think I might be okay with it. Maybe you're not. But I know this much. I probably wouldn't start talking about myself in the first person and said sexual act. I don't know if it would help or hurt my rant.
And
Here we go.
Marge Stone.
All right, well, I'm just thankful that y'all don't have the ability to make a mask mandate. And tonight I was going to talk about the need for a second high school, but I was sidetracked by, for the boys, or the idea of or the idea
Here come
of
the phones.
idea of a Mexican is a Mexican is a Mexican. Take her out back, we boys figured, then hand on the put it in her coin box, put it in her cornhole, grab a hold of that braid, rub that calico. You can find that on page 39 of the book called Out of Darkness, which
My
you can
favorite
find
part.
at Hudson Bend Middle School and Bee Cave Middle School. All right, not gonna lie, I had to Google cornhole because I have the game in the back of my yard. But according to Wikipedia, cornhole is a sexualist slang vulgarism for anus. The term came into the use in the 1910s in the United States as verb form to cornhole, which came into usage in the 1930s, means to have anal sex.
Got it.
I do not want my children to learn about anal sex
Don't go here.
in middle school.
Don't do it.
I've never had anal sex.
Oh.
I don't want to have anal sex. I don't want my kids having anal sex. I want you to start focusing on education and not public health.
Stone, you're on.
Next up. And how about the next person following her? How's that going to go? What do you do? What are you talking about? I'm here to talk about zoning, but I want to pick up where she left off about that anal sex stuff. Can I just pick up right where she left off, that she didn't like it, didn't want to do it? Can you imagine where the next person goes? Oh, yeah, the phones came out. The phones are out. How are the phones not out? I'm open to hear all the arguments. I'm open to hear. I don't like. I'm a little concerned about the comments. I think it could go off the rails, but the whole thing is off the rails anyway. So I don't think there's any hope in bringing this back together. I don't even know if it's possible to have legitimate debate about the book. I don't have a problem if you're offended by the book. I get it. I also don't have a problem with somebody saying you're offended by the book. It's just that last 15 seconds of that. I don't know if that helped. I wonder if she could do it over again. You know, I know she was there to get on the school board about masks or whatever. Something tells me she's there fairly often, but I wonder if she'd like to take back the last 15 seconds.
John McClellan is the co-founder and creator of ATX Hot Sauce in all 50 states, now in several retail outlets as well. So we're going to turn it over to the social media rock chef superstar, and we're going to walk through a few sauces and why you should buy. We've done beet heat, so we're second in line now for the tasting. Don't forget, everyone, go to atxhotsauce.com. So here we go.
All right, so this one is our smoked habanero 5-pepper. We smoke habaneros with ancho,
Is that going to hurt?
This one? No,
Yeah.
This one's actually really, really good.
Okay.
This is like your traditional tapatio, but without the vinegar in it, right? And because of that fermentation process that we've talked about all the time. This one is great on sandwiches, pizzas, things like that. Great on hot wings. I think you're going to really like this one too, especially the smoky flavor with the adobe chipotle and the smoked habaneros. We actually smoked the habaneros before we.
Does that go with the cab?
This would not go with the cab. This would go with the great Chenin Blanc, though.
I teed you up with that one.
Yeah, yeah.
That is good. That's
Yeah,
good.
isn't that good? It's just classic take. Well, it's a new take on a classic item. So it's called smoked habanero 5-pepper.
All right, don't forget
One of my
ATX.
favorites.
Don't forget atxhotsauce.com. The visuals, it's just there's so much to do with that. There really is. The visuals are spectacular. Like her facial expressions. I guess she has kids in that school. I don't know what today is like, But you got to watch the crowd because slowly behind her, someone is catching on. Oh my gosh, I got to get the phone out now. And you just see people try to really coolly take their phones out and deek. And then I'm going to bet if the camera keeps rolling, you can watch people in that room, all 40 of them or whatever it is. They're texting like crazy. Oh my, you got to check this out. I wonder how many of the messages said, you got to check this one out. I wonder how many just edited to the last 10 seconds. Am I dismissing her passion? No way. Oof. Yeah. Well, maybe for the last part, but no. She has every right and obligation to be there. They gave her time. They gave her the allotted time. Had she not spent so much time on the discussion about cornhole in her backyard, she probably could have finished out that last thought, which I don't think ended so well. I think she did not space it out properly because we ended with her first person versions of things. If I'm editing the speech and she had it written out, I could tell. I think she spent too much time on the cornhole in the backyard because that cut off the last part of her trying to clarify about her feelings. I know. Let's do it again.
1910s in the United States, its verb form to cornhole, which came into usage in the 1930s, means to have anal sex. I do not want my children to learn about anal sex in middle school. I have never had anal sex. I don't want to have anal sex. I don't want my kids having anal sex. I want you to start focusing on education and not public health.
Stone, you're on.
Oh, man. It's a great game, she said. I wonder if she has a newer game. I wonder if she got that new game they just came out with, Academy. You seen that one? It's a really good one. Those beanbags, they have like this Velcro on them now. She's got the best. I bet she has the best one. Maybe we can get her on the show. Hey, let's talk about that. Let's talk about cornhole. So do you have the newer version, the newest game? You ever watch it on ESPN? It's really exciting. Now, to try to have a serious debate, although it's going to be impossible, especially with that last part there, the book is not a public health book. It's not class. It's not public health. It's not. It's a book. You can argue whether you think the book is tasteful, whether it was justified. I think learning about a bombing in East Texas in the 1930s is pretty justified. I don't know why it has a bunch of stories about anal sex. I haven't read it yet. Gonna have to now. But it's not a public health. It's not health class. I mean, to argue with her a little bit, it's not at all what that book was about. But nobody cares about that now. I know. You want to go back to the middle part. I know. All right, do it again. Enjoy yourself. Have fun.
You to start focusing on education and not public health.
Stone, you're on.
You have anal sex. I do not want my children to learn about anal sex in middle school. I have never had anal sex. I don't want to have anal sex. I don't want my kids having anal sex. I want you to start focusing on education and not public health.
You know, I bet when you get a cup of coffee and you sit down at one of these, and I mean, not to get too serious again, but school boards are where stuff really matters. It's the very thing the Texas legislature seems to hate now. They hate local control. So I commend someone. Most of us, couldn't last 5 minutes at one of these meetings with or without this lady ranting about anal sex. Okay, it seems like you'd pour gas on your head. But I'm willing to bet someone did not show up. They probably showed up thinking she's going to come rant about masks or Trump or whatever. You get your cup of coffee and you sit down to have next up. I don't think you expected that. I'd love to see their reactions. I'd see a lot of heads going down, but I'm willing to bet you didn't wake up or that afternoon didn't, head over to the school after work. You're selling insurance during the day. At night, you're part of the school board. You really care. You're really trying to do some good work. I bet you didn't see this one coming. I bet this was not expected on the agenda. Okay, we'll do it again. I'm going to cut you off after a while. That's a little much. You're getting out of control. The comments are already off the charts. I'm only going to give you 1 or 2 or 6 more times.
Had anal sex. I don't want to have anal sex. I don't want my kids having anal sex. I want you to start focusing on education and not public health.
From the Hot Pie Media Studios in Austin, Texas, it's the Jeff Ward Show. Listen at jeffwardshow.com.